that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
A large, hairy creature with arms that hang down beside bore down on its sides.
Only heavens. And I told him my name, and when I told him his name, he said he was called Code.
It was not anything from this earth that I'm quite sure of.
You're listening to the Strangeology Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Foran, and this is your place to explore the weird, strange, and unexplained. From cryptids and creatures, the paranormal, aliens and UFOs, forbidden knowledge, ancient mysteries, conspiracies, and more. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Coming up on today's episode is a discussion on near-death experiences, along with technology that's being implemented to access higher consciousness, remote viewing, and more. Now, I don't get personal with my own stuff too much on the show. You all know that. We're over 60 episodes deep here, but I do have to take a quick moment here to let you guys know how I'm doing as the topic of today's episode. And maybe it's coincidence or synchronicity, but the topic of today's episode is kind of fitting in a way with things that are going on in my life. So a couple weeks ago, my mother, who had been battling against a life-threatening sickness for just about 2 years, unfortunately lost her battle and passed away. So I've been navigating that with myself, my family. It's been a lot to deal with. We knew that time was short, but not as short as it was. So I've spent a lot of time over the past couple of weeks reflecting on the good times growing up, how my mom raised me, and she was the best. And I know that she was very proud of me and what I've done and built with Strangeology and everything else I've done with my life. She always loved the paranormal and the unexplained. And she's probably one of the biggest reasons why I got into all of this stuff and why I'm doing what I'm doing today. And it's funny just thinking back that, as an adult going to visit my parents, a lot of the times she was always watching shows like Ancient Aliens and other stuff that was on the Sci-Fi Channel, Discovery, TLC, whatever, ancient mystery shows. I think there was one Christmas where I got her a DVD box set of the Josh Bernstein show. The name of it's escaping me right now, but it was like the early 2000s, and he was kind of like a pre-Josh Gates kind of guy, Destination Unknown style show. And I also remember that she had this book series from Time Life, I believe, when I was growing up, called Mysteries of the Unknown. And it was always on the bookshelf. And there was this one book there. I'm pretty sure she had like half a dozen of them. There was a whole series. And there was this one, I think it was I remember one with a pyramid and the Sphinx. That was, I think, Mystic Places. But this one may have been Alien Encounters, because there was this one story with a full page spread of this artist's rendition of an alien abduction story that was being told in the book. And it was this scene on a highway or a rural road where this car was stopped and there was a UFO that had come down onto the road, and this strange looking humanoid alien was coming up to the windshield of the car. And I think it kind of looked like a fawn or a satyr. Like it had horns and these weird red eyes, I think, and a blue jumpsuit on. And the people in the car were freaking out. And just that scene always freaked me out so much. But it also intrigued me a lot too. And well, here I am today talking about all this stuff. And I've definitely got my mom to thank for inspiring me to look into all the weirdness out in the world in a way, and to seek the truth and look for answers out there. So that's all I'll say for that. And thank you all for supporting what I do here with Strangeology. It means the world to me. Just as a reminder for new listeners out there, just going to get a few more things out of the way, front loading the show here as usual. But don't forget to put your podcasting apps onto auto download so you never miss a new episode. Really trying to keep to the bi-weekly release schedule this season, and it's super helpful for the show to get it out to more people. And it's also very appreciated too, and very helpful if you could take some time to go ahead and leave a review. A 5-star review is awesome, and a written review is awesome as well. I very much appreciate it. Also, be sure to follow me over on social media. If you're wondering what I'm up to in between posting episodes, I'm usually posting content there most days of the short form video format. You can find me over on Instagram at strange.ology, or Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at just Strangeology. I also have an X account as well as a Threads account, but I rarely post on those platforms, and it's, there's so much going on all the time. But the links, as always, will be in the show notes for all of my social accounts, so definitely give me a follow there if you haven't yet. And if you ever have any feedback about the show, constructive thoughts, stories of your own encounters with the strange and unexplained, you can always DM me on Instagram or Facebook, or send an email to info@strangeology.com. And a couple more updates. The release schedule is going to be changing from Thursdays at midnight to Fridays. It's something that I've been thinking about switching up for a little while here. The big reason is a lot goes into production and editing beforehand, especially the night before a new episode comes out. And that usually has to happen on Wednesdays, or at least historically it has. And Wednesdays is actually band practice night for my band that I have. So that's been a juggling act for a while, trying to scramble to get everything done and still have time to drive out to the studio and rehearse with my bandmates. So with an extra day, it should ease things up a bit on my end for production and editing and all that. So just as an FYI, if you're wondering why an episode hasn't dropped on Thursday, it's changing to Friday. Also, as far as events go, I have another new event to announce. I'm now confirmed to be a vendor at the International Cryptozoology Conference in Portland, Maine on April 27th, which is super awesome. If you don't know what the International Cryptozoology Museum is, it's Lauren Coleman's whole operation. He's kind of the modern godfather of cryptozoology, and the museum's an awesome place. And if you're ever in Maine and love cryptids, cryptozoology history, you should definitely check it out. And definitely come to the event if you're in New England or like to travel to these kind of things, because it's going to be an awesome time. There's going to be some great speakers. And it's also super close for me, which is nice because a lot of the other events I'm doing, I'm traveling pretty far to this year. So definitely mark your calendars for that and come to my table and say hi. And again, the other confirmed events for this year so far are the Wytheville UFO Fest on June 8th in Wytheville, Virginia, Monster Fest in Canton, Ohio on June 29th, and Squonkapalooza in Johnstown, Pennsylvania on August 10th. I'm working on a couple other events as well, so definitely stay tuned. I, for some reason, never had an events page over on my official website, strangeology.com, but now I do, and you can check out all the details there. Well, why don't we get into it now? On this edition of the show, I had the privilege of speaking with Dr. Scott Taylor, who was, up until very recently, the president of the Monroe Institute. which has played a key role in the study of NDEs, remote viewing, and the development of a technology called Hemi-Sync. It was a very fascinating conversation. I think you'll enjoy it, so let's get into it. All right, folks, welcome back. Joining me today is Dr. Scott Taylor. Scott Taylor was the CEO of Brett's Department Stores and the Expanded Awareness Institute. He was the VP of Marketing and Sales for startup Phoenix Biocomposites. He also mentored thousands of small business owners and nonprofit organizations through the Small Business Management Program for the state of Minnesota. In addition, he's also the voice and author of 6 best-selling Into the Light audio albums that explore the intersection of Hemi-Sync technology and near-death experiences. So, Scott, thank you so much for coming onto my show. I'm glad that you're here. We're going to be talking a lot about near-death experiences today, which has always been a fascinating topic for me, but you've got a pretty storied background. Can you talk about your journey from going from a department store CEO to where you are today?
Thank you, Jeff. I have been looking forward to our interview, so thank you for the invitation to come on. And I grew up in a retail business, and when I became involved with the family department stores, we were like 4 stores. And then eventually I worked my way up and took over as CEO, and we expanded to 17 stores. And it was, there's nothing more fun than running a retail operation, except when you don't. We hit the recession of 92, 91. And in that recession, about 95% of the retail stores just went away because of the particular change in the marketplace. We hung on till the bitter end, and then it just died. Well, in the middle of that, I was in love with a woman by the name of Mary Frances Randall, and Mary Fran and her son Nolan were coming home from a day of sailing in southern Minnesota, and they were involved in a horrific car crash. And Mary Fran was killed outright, and Nolan was, he suffered a mortal head injury, so much so that it took him 6 days to make his transition. So what happened then was during that intervening 6 days, the family all had time to gather. And we're very lucky in that we were in southern Minnesota. So the Mayo Clinic is just, down the road in Rochester.
Yes.
And so both of them were taken there, and they received terrific care. But it wasn't enough to overcome the massive injuries that they both had sustained. Well, it got to the point where Nolan's vital signs were just slowly decreasing. And the nurse came in to all of us in the waiting room, and there was a ton, like 40 relatives, because Mary Fran was one of 9, and Nolan was the oldest grandchild. And so there was, lots of heartfelt connections there.
Yes.
And, time for uncles and aunts and neighbors and friends and spouses and boyfriends and girlfriends. I mean, there was just a ton of people there. And when the nurse came in and said, it's time, we all filed into Nolan's room. And as it turns out, I was one of the last people to enter the room, and it's already 4 or 5 deep around the bed. So I said, well, this is silly. So I went and sat on the windowsill, and, there's not much to do. when you're waiting for somebody to make their transition. And in Nolan's case, it was very peaceful. And then, his heart rate just slowly declined until he flatlined.
Yeah.
And when Nolan flatlined, what I experienced was Mary Fran reminding that she had died 6 days before. But Mary Fran came across the veil and scooped up her son out of his physical body. And the two of them had this exquisite reunion. And it surprised me because I was able to feel what was transpiring between the two of them. And I mean, it was an extraordinary thing, as you could only imagine, the feelings being exchanged between a mother and son. And then, even more to my surprise, was that the two of them then turned to me, came over, embraced me, and the three of us went to the light. And once I was in the light, I was in this realm of extraordinary love and compassion. It was a place where everything was connected to everything else, and that you realize that you are one with the love of the universe, and that you are linked with everything that is. But that was all secondary. What was most important was that the three of us were there in the light, and we had a chance to affirm between the three of us our love and affection for each other. And then we had a chance to say a proper goodbye, because Mary Fran and Nolan, I was working when they were driving home from that day of sailing. And so we had a chance to be together, express what we needed to express. And at some point, it just felt complete, that we did what we needed to do. And so then Mary Fran and Nolan turned and they went further into the light, and I turned and went back into my physical body. So that's kind of part one of three. I'm going to pause here for just a second to see, Jeff, if you have any questions.
Oh, I have so many questions.
All right.
Yes. Now, from what I understand, this is something that's called a shared death experience, which is a newer concept for me in any of the knowledge that I do have about NDEs. But when you say that you saw her coming down to pick up her son, was this something where you kind of shifted into this altered state where you could see it, or did anyone else kind of experience anything in the room? Like the whole family was there and neighbors and everything. How exactly did this appear to you?
Okay, so that's two questions. I'll answer the one about how did it appear, and then we'll save that your second question, because that's actually part three of my story, is what happened to the other people in the room. So yes, I was transported into another dimension, into a place that was an expanded state of awareness. And to say, it wasn't exactly visual as much as it was, this energy that had an energy signature to it. I mean, I knew that energy was Mary Fran, and I knew that the energy that was being lifted out of the body was Nolan's. And then when we were in the light together, there was this communication that happened between the three of us. And early on, I learned that when you're in this space, the communication that happens isn't in English. And thank God, because English, as it turns out, is really confined in its ability to transmit subtleties of thought and whole ideas. So, what Mary Fran and Nolan, what we shared was so much more complex and had so much depth of meaning to it that I'd be hard pressed to put words to it. It's like you get the whole thought all at once, or you get the whole emotion, and then all of the ancillary thoughts and images that come with that, but it's all transmitted at once, and it would take us a half an hour, to describe what happens in an instant in that plane. We know a lot about near-death experiences. I've done a lot of research on it. And when you start reading books about it, they usually say, well, here's the common elements. Okay, Jeff, there's 18 common elements that people typically experience when they have a near-death experience. Well, the very first one of those lists usually is it's ineffable, which is a great word that means, we really don't have the English words for it. And yes, I'm doing the best I can to kind of, give you that, but it's only, it's a pale comparison to, the whole thought.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear about. And it totally makes sense that if you've passed on, you're in this non-physical realm, non-corporeal state, your energy, your soul, whatever it is, it's not going to be speaking English per se. I mean, you'd probably be able to understand anything, That's really interesting to hear for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, my next question for you is, well, back when I was growing up, it seemed like NDEs was sort of more of a fringe, less accepted concept. I was a child of the 80s and 90s. And maybe, society found itself too cemented in the material world. But as time has marched forward, it seems that a lot more people are coming out with these experiences. Things are getting documented. Studies are being done. Is there more acceptance now of this phenomena than there was in the past?
Absolutely. And it happens a couple of different ways. One is that the scientific research that says, are near-death experiences real? Well, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, it probably took 30 years of, consistent research, and, everybody who came up with an idea, well, it's, oxygen deprivation of the brain, or it's my favorite. It's a replication of the birth, of our physical birth, like go to the light. It just, anyway, all of those, people thought those have all been disproven. And we now have really good research that says this is a real thing. And the research now has actually kind of shifted away from, is it real, to how do we live with what we know? Isn't that an interesting shift? And once that started happening, there was really an extraordinary change that happened in our culture. I mean, let's face it, Harry Potter, he had a near-death experience in the last movie.
Yeah.
He goes up and he meets Dumbledore, and Dumbledore tells him things that he couldn't know if he was in the physical plane. It's a classic near-death experience. And, something that popular winds up being, part of the genre and and the kids learn about it, and it's not scary and it's not weird. In fact, hang on just a second.
Sure.
I'll be right there. So this is the coolest thing. So if you go online and you type in near death experience, or you type in a metaphor for death or images of death, something like that onto Google, about 10 years ago, you would, oh shoot, hang on. Let's try that again.
Yeah.
So if you go on to Google and you would type in something like images of death, about 10 years ago, what you would get if you type that in is this very classic image, right?
Of course,
It's
the Grim Reaper, for those who
the
aren't watching.
Grim
on YouTube.
Reaper. And what does that say about death? Well, it says it's malevolent and it's dark. I mean, that Grim Reaper doesn't really have a face, and it's, hooded and it's secret, and it's got the big sigh, that's a big old sharp knife. And so it's going to be painful. And just everything about that image has it being something to be feared. Do it now, today, and what you get is this image.
Yes.
You get the light at the end of the tunnel. And just think about that. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that we are moving from a place of physicality, the dark, slow moving energy, into the light. And what's in the light? Well, it's God's love. It's God's redemption. In the light, you find your deceased relatives who greet you with a party. It's joyous. You're moving towards something as opposed to entering into something fearful and unknown. It's a complete reversal of how we have thought about death. And culturally, I think that is an astounding happening. The very first book that came out about near-death experiences was Raymond Moody's book in 1975 called Life After Life. Well, that's 50 years ago. 50 years ago, in 50 years, we have totally transformed how we as a culture think about death, as opposed to the other 300,000 years that have come before us. So it's been a remarkable change, and one that is now accessible, and that people, they don't fear it. They might not quite be aware of what transpires, but there are a lot of folks out there that have had near-death experiences. Oh my gosh, go on YouTube and just type it in, and thousands of stories. Back when soap operas were a big deal, every soap opera star had a near-death experience because that's how it moved the plot line along.
Right. Yes.
So it's great that we now are realizing that we are multidimensional human beings, that we exist on all planes of existence at once. And what we're doing is, we might be shedding our physical body, but that energetic body that we live in, that is our true nature, and goes back and returns to the light, returns to the love of the universe, the love of God. And it's an extraordinary transition. And along the way, you get to have all kinds of help, because there are guides and escorts, and your family members are there to greet you. It's the research that's been done on near-death experiences and on shared death experiences tell us that this is a really positive experience that people can actually look forward to once they realize that they don't have to be in an ailing or injured human form anymore.
Right, right, and it's interesting in the juxtaposition of Eastern cultures that believe in things like this and have for thousands of years, reincarnation within like Buddhism and stuff like that, and Western culture seems to be kind of catching up or coming to more of an understanding of that, which is it's definitely an interesting time to be alive in this realm, right?
I agree.
Now I wanted to circle back quick. After your shared death experience, was there, obviously that was kind of a catalyst, a catapult to push you into studying this kind of stuff. What did you first do after this? Did you try to seek out some kind of support group? Was there anything back then that kind of helped guide people through the aftermath of experiencing something like that?
So the first thing that occurred to me after my experience was that I had been given a gift, and that I had been invited to be with Mary Fran and Nolan in the light, and I returned to my physical body. That meant if I had gone there once, I could go there again. I just had to figure out how to do it. And it took me on this worldwide quest of trying to figure out a way to make that happen. And I mean, I went to, my first thought was ancient sacred sites, because at these sites, there must be some energetic juju that would help propel me into that state again. So I went to places like Stonehenge, and to the Great Pyramid, and to the Sphinx, and to the Oracle of Delphi. I went to Machu Picchu. And in each one of these locations, I had a great vacation.
Right.
But there really wasn't anything there for me that, helped propel me. So I said, well, all right, we got to do something a little more active. So I studied with shamans in both North America and South America. And I took up meditation. I started with TM and tried some different styles. I even decided that, maybe there's something in the academic world that could help me out. And I started my doctoral program, and so I went to seminary. I almost forgot about that, thinking that they might have some answers there. Well, long story short, what really made a difference for me was discovering the writings of Bob Monroe. Bob Monroe was the first person to write about out-of-body experiences, and he did that in 1971. And he talked about how we all have the ability to leave our physical bodies, our energetic body, where our consciousness resides, get to leave our physical bodies and then go and move around the universe. I went to a course in Faber, Virginia, and sure enough, the technology that he had developed, it was binaural beat technology called Hemi-Sync, that allows people to enter into and hold expanded states of awareness. That did the trick, Jeff. When I had those experiences of being in an expanded state, I could use my intention and go and visit Mary Fran and Nolan. I had found a way back to be able to enter into the states where they exist currently, or sometimes they tell me that, they've slowed their vibratory rate down and I've sped mine up, and we kind of meet in the middle.
Interesting.
And that's how I found a way to connect with them and a way to sustain a relationship with them, for the past 40 years. So it's been, it's been quite a journey that has taken me to, I worked as a facilitator for the Monroe Institute for 35 years, teaching the techniques that they teach to people all over the world. I was their executive director for a couple of years, so I got to learn it from an administrative side. And then eventually, what I figured out how to do is to use their tools and techniques, but not their cosmology. Cosmology just means, how is the universe organized? How is it constructed? Well, Bob Monroe had developed one path, one map of the non-physical universe. Well, there's another whole group of people who have another map, and that's the near-death experiences and the shared death experiencers. They have another map. And so what I did was apply the tools and techniques of exploring the expanded states of awareness using binaural beats with the cosmology of near-death experiencers, and it made the trip a lot easier.
Yeah.
And it made it accessible, because there's so much written about near-death experiences. I mean, you read any book and it tells you, well, once you lift out of your body, there's an escort, you go down a tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel, you enter the light, and, there's a reunion and a life review. And, it's a lovely progression that people can go through when they have a near-death experience. And so it's not strange or otherworldly. I mean, it's things that people have written about for a long time. And, tens of millions of people have had near-death experiences, and now shared death experiences, now that we have a term for that. And so when I talk about it to folks, it's like, oh yeah, I know about that. I saw a couple YouTube videos, I read a book, or and people now know what meditation is, especially Western style meditation, which is an active variety. So it's not spooky, it's not strange. It's now accessible for all kinds of people to enter and use and know where they're going to go, which is wonderful, because that stops all of the fear around making your transition. And once that fear is gone, it makes living in the physical world just so joyous, so much more fun, because that big weird thing just isn't there anymore, because what's going to happen, and it's going to be great.
Right. Yes. So that brings me to this question that I had. It seems that people are often fundamentally and profoundly changed and affected when they go through this experience. Sometimes they might have new knowledge or skills or a totally different outlook on life, obviously, because they know that death is not the end. It's not lights out, you're done. There is something more on the other side of this veil. As far as people coming back with new skills, is there, what would be the cause of that? Is there someone on the other side teaching them something real quick, or?
That's a great question, because my understanding from the people that I've talked to and the books that I've read around this particular topic is that when we come into the physical world, We come from this place of unity where we are one with all creation. So we know everything. We know what creation knows because we're an integral part of it and we're connected to it. However, creation is in a process of looking at itself and saying, what is this love? What does love mean? And what are the ways that it can be expressed? And how you do that is that you remove yourself from unity and you enter into a state of duality. Hello, that's the physical world. And so we exist in this blissful, loving state, and we choose to jump into this world of duality where, things aren't, it's not the same. The way to explain this, I think, is in the world of duality where you and I are now, Jeff, I am different than you, and you are different than me, and I am different than that microphone. And we have this separate thing. And so it's guided by the words either or, it's either me or you. And that's how we experience the world of duality. In the world of unity, it's run by the words both and. Jeff, you are you. Scott, I am me. And we are also both part of this unified universe. So we get to have our individual personalities, and we are connected to humanness. There's one human consciousness that we are a part of, and that in turn is connected to the loving universe. So it's both singular, and we're also connected. So it's a different way of being. All right, this is a long introduction to the idea that when we are here in the physical world, we are experiencing contrast. We are experiencing, the two sides of the same coin, love and fear, and once we know, what it's like to not have something, like you're not connected, when you go back and are connected, there's a fuller sense of who we are and what we're about. We've all had that, in our lives where, we say had a relationship and then the two parties separate and you go, oh my God, that woman was truly extraordinary. And you realize it in its absence. And so when you come back together again, you can appreciate it better. And that's kind of like what it's like to come into the physical world, where we get a chance to experience what it's like to be disconnected from source. Okay, so here we go. When we jump into the physical world, what happens is that there's this filter that's put in place that says you have chosen this, and we are going to have this filter, and you are no longer going to be consciously connected to the physical world. And when a near-death experience happens, it's like that filter just gets shattered. And so that information can come through because, oh my, I really am connected. I never really lost that except for that filter. And so that's how it happens. It's not like we learn new skills. It's more like we remember who we are and what we are capable of, because that filter that we accepted when we came into this physical world has been removed. Say, like in the case of a shared death experience, it's more like it's been parted. It's not so violent as what happens with a near-death experience, because let's face it, most people who have near-death experiences, their physical body is so traumatized that it dies. And, and then we leave that broken body and go have an adventure and come back to the body. And, it's a painful, long process of healing that body again. So, if you want to go visit those places, may I highly recommend that you avoid the whole near-death experience thing. Just saying, it's a really tough way to go.
Yeah.
But you can go there through meditation, like we were just talking about, or even shared death experience where you are bedside when somebody's making their transition, and you can go with them and see what that's like and experience what it is that they're going through, which is what happened to me. I didn't have anything physically wrong with me. I was just sitting on a windowsill.
Yeah.
And I had the experience of going with Mary, Fran, and Nolan into the light and experiencing what it was like to be in that space, that the connection with everything, the ability to share experiences and emotions and love, just like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a really long answer to a quick question. But
Oh, no worries. No worries. I mean, that's definitely, you mentioned that it was kind of a gift, and it really, really is, dealing with loss and such a traumatic experience with two people that you loved very much. And, that's must have felt a lot more at peace and reassured that they were both okay on the other side. And
that's true.
a lot of people don't really get that kind of closure until you meet again someday in the future, I wanted to talk about Hemi-Sync a little bit more. So this was developed by Bob Monroe, you mentioned, using the binaural beats. Were there any problems or hurdles to overcome with the original technology, and can anybody use it, or is there some kind of special preparation that needs to be done beforehand?
Yes. Thank you for those questions. So kind of a shorthand way to think about binaural beats is that it's a sound technology. So you wear headphones, and what happens is that Hemi-Sync, all binaural beats work the same way. It's an old technology. It's been around since the late 1800s, or was discovered in the late 1800s. It just, like, we didn't know what to do with it until Bob Monroe came along. And so what it means is that you're wearing these headphones, and you'll put, say, a tone of 100 hertz into one ear. And then you put another tone, say 104 hertz, in the other ear. And the brain tries to equalize those two. It's the same way that we use to determine where things are in space. So, if there's a sound that's coming from over here, it hits one ear before it hits the other ear. And so what you do is you turn your head, equalize the two tones, and you go, oh yeah, the tiger's coming from that direction. That same inherent skill that's in our brains goes to work when we now put in 100 and 104, and the brain's trying to equalize it, and it can't, because they're inherently different. And so what it does, meaning the brain, sets up this unusual thing where it sets up a third tone that only you can hear. And it's the difference between the two. So we have 100, 104, and there's a third tone that's set up, which is 4. And the brain then begins to hear that sound and begins to resonate with that sound. And it does it, the whole brain, instead of operating as two separate units, the whole brain starts to resonate at that 4. So both the analytical side and the conceptual side start to work together to do this four thing, whatever that means. Well, if I were to do that to you right now, Jeff, what would happen is you'd go, because that's the frequency of deep sleep.
Interesting.
And so what Bob Monroe was trying to do was to say, well, I can do these out of body experiences, and it works best when the body isn't engaged. So if he was trying to figure out a way to put the body asleep so that, it wasn't an active part of doing a meditation. And so he discovered the four, right? Well, then if you increase the difference between the two, say to 12, 12 is bright, awake, clear. That's normal attention like we are in right now. Bob's genius was that he merged the two, and that he put in the tones that allowed for 4 and allowed for 12. And so you could enter into a state of body asleep, mind bright, awake, and clear at the same time. And that state of expanded awareness allowed him to go and do his out-of-body explorations. And then over the course of time, he played with, various blends. He played with various distances between the tones, and what happens if you have 4 tones versus 6 versus 8 versus 2 versus, what happens with each one? So you asked the question, like, what were the difficulties early on? It was getting enough people to lie down and he'd feed them tones, and he says, what are you feeling now?
Yeah.
What are you feeling now? There's great stories about how the postman would come and, drop off the mail, and Bob would just grab him and say, hey, I'm doing this sound thing.
Yeah.
Will you come in here and put on these headphones and tell me what you feel? So it was a slow process at first, but over time, we got really good at identifying various frequencies, because at these various frequencies, you can do different things. And he called them numbers. Focus 10 was the mind awake, body asleep, and focus 12 was a state of expanded awareness where you could be aware of things not in your physical location. Focus 15 was outside of time and space. So what does that mean? When time no longer is relevant, what can you do? It's a fascinating space. 18 is heart energy. 21 is that space I talked to you about, where the souls slow their vibratory level and we raise ours. And the nickname for it's the bridge, and at this bridge state, we can then have a chance to talk to entities that are in the non-physical. Some of it might be dead relatives who would like to have a chit chat, or it could be entities that have never been physical, like angels, and there's there's a myriad of things that are up there. And probably the last and most significant one that we work with all the time is a place that he calls the park, and it's that area of life between lives. It's like when we leave this physical body, we go to that vibratory level of the park. And it's interesting, Jeff, that we have Bob Monroe discovered this area of the park and wrote about it, and it's part of his cosmology. The people who are doing near-death research discovered the same place, because they also said that area of life between lives, they nicknamed it the park. It's the 2 different traditions that wound up describing the same place using the same word. So, it's like, ooh, double confirmation that this is a real place, and that's where we hang out as we leave this physical body, and it's where we, jump into this physical world from there.
Yeah, it's like a waiting station or something like that for.
Or some would call it our true home.
Yeah.
That this world of the physical is a really small subset of that vast, vast world of the non-physical. And we come here to experience non-unity. We come here to experience duality because we can learn so much here by being parted from that all-knowing experience.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole thing just kind of reminds me of simulation theory. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And there's some who have studied it that think it's a 50-50 chance that our reality here is a simulation. We come here to learn things and then go back to the source, whatever that is. Is it the park? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Near-death experiences, common elements. You talked about there were 18 common elements. Can you describe a handful of them for listeners out there who might be curious?
Sure. So I tend to organize them in a way that makes it sound like a journey, because a lot of people experience this in that particular order. There's a huge caveat, though, which says it doesn't need to be in this order. And you don't, people who had near-death experiences don't necessarily have all of them. So it goes like this. So you're in a physical body, and say you're in a car accident and your body is damaged, and you leave your physical body. And at that point, there's this recognition of that you're changing your energy level. So folks will often describe a wind, a rush, a loud ringing or bells. And it's this recognition that we're moving from the slow body vibration to a higher vibration that's associated with non-physical body. So it's like, right? And so there's this energetic surge that happens. And then people will often, they'll roll over and look down and go, oh, wow, there's a physical body. One of my favorite stories is this guy. He had a heart attack and he's laying on the living room floor. And it happens that one of his good buddies was the EMT. And so, buddy rushes in and he's doing the chest compressions, right? And our friend, flatlines, and he lifts up above his body. He's going, wow, this is nice. And he rolls over and he looks down and he goes, hey, that's Fred working on me. Well, how about that? Huh, look at that. He's got male pattern baldness. I never recognized that before. Which just tells us that in that story, this wasn't a strange state. He wasn't fearful. He was just kind of curious about, Fred's hairline. It's just so easy, so mundane. And very often there'll be an escort there. And, it could be, your grandma Ginny or your favorite teacher. It could be a religious figure, a Jesus, a totem animal, something. And so this escort will, say, hey, Jeff, it's time to go. Let's, and you start moving through the tunnel. And the tunnel is filled with sound and lights and music and colors. It's it's an extraordinary passageway into the light. And what that signifies is that it's transition. You know, it's a really healthy thing for people to go through this tunnel, because it's saying, I'm leaving the physical world and I'm headed toward the light. And when they enter into the light, they're greeted by their dead friends and relatives, and pets even are there. And there's a reunion party. And, you know, these people are there and they welcome you, and you exchange stories, and you get to catch up on each other's lives. And so it's a grand adventure. Then when that seems to be complete, very often there'll be another guide, another kind of escort that will take you to a place where you can have a life review. And the life review is just like it sounds. You know, you get to experience everything that you experience in your physical life. But here's the secret. That life review happens from 3 different perspectives. You get to live it all again with all the emotions and the thoughts, just like I did the first time. But I also get to live it as the other in the scene. So when I have my life review, when it comes that time, I'll be able to know what you were thinking and feeling as part of this interview. So I get to be you when in that scene. So I'm me and I am you. And the third perspective is that of being omniscient. So, you know, what happens as a result of this conversation? What happens to people who watch this podcast or listen to it, you know, audio? And so what we get to see then is the connection, the relationship that you and I now have. How does that spread out to our family, to our friends, to our community, and essentially to all of us as a human species? How is this interaction affecting all of us as human beings? And then there's the Healing and Regeneration Center, where we get to go and be healed of, well, there's kind of a debrief session, you know, and they say, okay, you know, you were kind of beat up there. I mean, you died when you were 97, you know, your body was kind of, it was old and decrepit. And they fix you. And any of that energy that came from being in the physical body that was diminished is healed. And then you get to go and live and learn and be part of the human experience in the park.
Interesting.
So those are kind of the common elements that people encounter with a near-death experience.
Yeah. That all definitely sounds familiar for sure. Do people ever, speaking on reincarnation, do people ever choose to come back? What's your perspective on that? I'm curious.
Oh, yeah. So we're in the park, and at some point you're going, you know, I would really like to learn this. My soul needs to have this experience. And so I'm going to choose to enter into the Earth biosystem. And there's a team that is there that helps you organize that. And they help you pick out your parents, your siblings, you know, where you're going to be, what town you're going to live in, you know, kind of what culture you're growing up in. And then it's like, okay, I want to have this experience. So along the way, I'm going to meet these people, and they're going to have that role. And they're going to teach me different things. They could be good things, could be bad things, whatever. And so it's all organized for us in this kind of this broad framework. It says, I'm gonna have this upbringing, and then I'm gonna embark on these things. And I also get to have free will. And free will says that, you're putting your own details on this kind of this broad framework. And you can also have the free will to not follow the framework. However, there's a however. What I have come to understand is that the people who look after us, our guides, try to nudge us along the way so that we get to fulfill the mission that we have set out for ourselves. And we have a responsibility to others to teach them lessons. And so if we go far afield from our path, we're not fulfilling our mission and we're messing up other people's. And so at some point, the hints get louder and louder from the guides until they finally just bring out the spiritual 2x4 and whack you alongside the head and go, Jeff, you're screwing this up. We laid out this plan and it ain't working. And you got to get on the plan or let's call it a day.
Right.
And there is a large component of near-death experiences that are just like that, where people have gotten off the path, boom, they're up in the park and they're meeting with their team, and the team is just telling them, hey, listen, you signed up for this and you're doing that, and they're not the same, and what are we going to do about that? Do you want to go anyway? So you get a different perspective and you get to understand what it is that we do when we come into the physical world. And so we play roles for ourselves, we play roles for others, but I like to think of it like it's this enormous jigsaw puzzle. And each of us, have those little bumps and they have those little indents. And our job is to live our authentic self. And the more that we can be who we are, the more our piece is outlined well. And that piece fits into the jigsaw puzzle in a very specific way. That's what we're here for, is that we're here to plug into the human experience in a very specific way so that we can all learn what we need to learn. And I like that. It makes sense to me as a metaphor for, why are you learning one lesson and I'm learning another? And, how does that work when we get off the path a little bit, that little bump out spot that's supposed to fit into the next piece over here. That's, my bride or my best friend or something, we're supposed to be fitting, and it's not. So how do we make those changes? And is it a book? This is the part that just is so much fun when you do this work. You begin to realize, I've been pondering this question, and I got into my car and I flipped on the radio, and there's a song lyric that answers the question that I needed to know. Or somebody walks by the street, or you pick up a book, you meet somebody at a conference. It's just, the world is full of synchronicity.
Yes.
That is placed there for us so that we can move along our path and begin to truly enjoy and be in this state of wonder about how we're all interconnected. I think that's why people who embark on a spiritual path, it's not easy, and yet it's one of the most fulfilling and wonder-filled adventures that we can have.
Yeah, absolutely. And the implications for all of this is so vast. And I would love to dive down some more rabbit holes with you, Scott, on this. we are at the top of the hour. So I'm going to ask you one final question. Can you tell my listeners where the best place to find you online is and how to get in touch and check out your work?
That's an easy one. My website is the best place to go. It is Near Death Meditations, plural, neardeathmeditations.com. And there you can see the albums that I have put together that help guide us along that path that I was talking about. There they are in the background here. I also have an on-demand course through the Shift Network that teaches people how to enter into these states of awareness that are associated with a near-death experience. So that is theshiftnetwork.com. But that is available. Both that and the albums are easily linked from my website, neardeathmeditations.com.
Great.
That's the place, man.
All right. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show today, Scott. And we'll talk to you again soon.
My pleasure, Jeff. This has been a hoot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Thanks again to Dr. Taylor for coming on the show today and sharing his own experiences and all of the work that he has helped accomplish with the Monroe Institute. Definitely seems like an operation that is doing some very important work in understanding the reality, the world that we live in, and what might come next after this life is over. Dr. Taylor's links will be in the show notes, so definitely check all of his stuff out. Check out his meditation modules and all that. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone out there who checks out the Strangeology podcast. Those of you who download it, share it with friends and family, it helps me out so much when you do that. The Strangeology podcast wouldn't be possible without the support of listeners like you. And if you want to support what I do with Strangeology, you love what I do, love the topics I'm talking about, one way to do it is to become a member of my Patreon over at patreon.com/Strangeology. I've got a number of different tiers with benefits, all starting at as little as $1 per month. Some of the perks include shoutouts, voting power on topics for me to cover when I'm doing research episodes, behind the scenes looks at what I do, ad-free episodes, and early access to new episodes as well, along with access to Strangeology Beyond, the episode extension for members only. That is sometimes a whole other episode in and of itself. There's also exclusive merch for members, discounts on my shop, and even a t-shirt of the month club featuring my home state cryptids collection, of which there are over 60 different state cryptid designs. It's a great time, and I hope to see you there. Again, that's patreon.com/Strangeology. And thank you to all of my patrons out there, past and present, for your support, which helps keep the lights on here at Strangeology HQ. And if Patreon isn't your thing, you can also send some support by subscribing to my Instagram or my Facebook account. I've recently set that up, and it would be great if you checked that out. And if you're looking for another way to support the Strangeology podcast and Strangeology in general, I also have merch over on my Etsy shop, which is strangeology.etsy.com. The link will be in the show notes. I've got a whole assortment of different cryptid, alien, and Fortean gear available on items like t-shirts, hoodies, long sleeves, tank tops, sweatshirts. I've also got stickers, magnets, mugs, tumblers, blankets, enamel pins, and I'm sure there's other stuff I'm missing. But I try to add new designs as often as I can. I do all my own artwork. And again, I've also got the Homestate Cryptid collection. If you love cryptozoology and want to represent your home state with some of your state's most popular cryptids, definitely something to check out as well. So again, that's strangeology.etsy.com. I appreciate your support. To any advertisers or companies out there looking to collaborate with the Strangeology podcast, or if you are an author or researcher who would like to be considered for an interview on the show, please send all inquiries, business or otherwise, to info@strangeology.com. And again, I'm always looking for strange stories from listeners out there. So if you've ever encountered a cryptid, a UFO, anything paranormal or unexplained, I would love to hear about it. At some point in the future, I'd love to do a follow-up listener stories episode, so definitely get in touch. That's info@strangeology.com. All right, I think that is all from me for now. I'm going to take a quick break here, and Dr. Taylor was able to stick around for a little while longer to chat about some more experiences with the Monroe Institute, along with other people's NDEs, which was really fascinating to hear about for sure. You won't want to miss it. So patrons, stick with me for Strangeology Beyond, and for everyone else, until the next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and keep it strange. Welcome back, members, to Strangeology Beyond, your exclusive portion of the show. The conversation with